you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, cannabis socialite.
And I am Dasicias Dawson, the weed head.
Hi, sis.
Hey, sis. Hey, sis.
Hey, sis. On today's episode of She Blaze, Black celebrities are being sued by marijuana companies. The United Nations vote to deschedule cannabis, and we're taking a deep dive into the MORAD.
Ooh, well, we have a fantastic live episode. We're double live. We are live on Facebook and we are live on IG, or I am live on IG. So, that's just like
great.
I'm even losing my earring already. It's happened. So I'm gonna take this one off so I don't look crazy. But
it's been that type of week.
It has been. But let's kick things off with the high of the week. Of course, I am very excited to be showcasing Dasicias Designs. This is my Sora shirt. Welcome to America. Shout out to my Soras, the AKAs. And of course, we are so blessed to have our Madam VP-elect Kamala Harris representing for us in the White House. And so we got a little bit of pink and green in America going on right now. So that's my high of the week. Dacia is Black owned. She's a soror, and she's got a bunch of designs for AKAs, but she also has a lot of designs for just Black folk, Black and brown folk, HBCUs, etc., the whole nine.
Oh, wow. Well, that's pretty dope. I think that looks good, and we already know who's ruling the White House right now.
Okay. All right.
Well, my high of the week is a little bit different. It's not so much high, but it is to really check the government and make sure and remind them that they serve us, the people, who we are. And so before Donald Trump leaves office, he plans on executing some 5 people federally.
Keep going.
Oh. Yes. So he plans on executing them federally. Currently, he's actually executed more people federally than any president had in this decade. He's already executed 9 people, mainly Black people, except 1 white woman. And at this point, he's trying to execute 5 more before he leaves office. Now, that's kind of weird to me because, to be honest, he doesn't even have 5 weeks in the office. So how does he want to execute 5 people? So we're not letting that happen. You know what I'm saying? And we checking him. So I really want to call and rally everyone's attention to, sign the petition to stop President Trump, and then send a letter to your congressman to let them know we ain't having it.
No. So you are going to drop those in Facebook, and I think I'm going to make a post about it on IG just so folks can do it. How long do they have to sign the petition, Ice?
Well, they have until the beginning of, this is the beginning of December, so that's a tough one. But I do believe it's that he's trying to push these through quickly. So my best guess is to sign it as soon as possible. He does not have a long time in the office, so he really wants to execute these executions and his pardons. And, everyone's so focused on the pardons, but we are not going to allow them to execute Black men from years ago crimes that you guys barely even still have the evidence on. Right. So, no, that's not happening.
There's just too many times that we've had where it's just not true. I mean, I've been watching the Sean Ellis story on Netflix, and oh my goodness, and he's one of many. And I think that's why you can't be killing people, especially when out of all these people that you're trying to kill, they're mostly Black men. It doesn't, I don't personally believe in execution personally, but I think that it is one of those things where, why is this your last thing you want to do?
Well, he wants to kill some Black folks and then pardon his family. And on that note, we are
Yeah.
moving on to hot topic
Hot
number
topic number one.
one.
Let's go. We got a
Yes,
lot of juicy topics, yo.
I mean, it's really juicy. And the first hot topic is really for all the legalization states, the ones that voted by ballot to legalize. It was a clean sweep.
Yep.
Well, some of these red states are really not feeling it. And so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there's been many court cases, filings during this time of legalization via state. Now, Mississippi, they are having issues. A mayor filed a lawsuit against the initiative before the election. So
Gotcha.
before
Before we
everyone
even
even
knew.
voted. Yes.
That's hating. Okay.
Okay. And so before the election, they brought the stuff to court. Well, the Mississippi Supreme Court just created the deadlines in order for them to file all their motions.
Mm-hmm.
And they have until December 7th to file their written arguments. And
Gotcha.
then the Secretary of State has until December 28th to respond.
So first of all, thank God that we do this show, because we wouldn't even know if you weren't literally an investigative journalist finding all of the tea. They're like, tea under there? Okay, Ice gonna find it.
Right.
But why are we not surprised? And this is actually what I talked about recently as I was talking about some of the repercussions of MORE Act and how the opposition already uses everything that they can to try to make it so that we can't move forward. And, when we do things that aren't really in support of what really is legit forward movement, it just gives them more ammunition. Especially said, listening to what you were talking about, some of these are literally the most like technical of technicalities to try to throw out the ballot measure, which is crazy because it's clear the people voted. Who cares what you think now? It's like, these are your constituents. They voted and they said, okay.
Right. You mad as the mayor, they bypassed we need local approval. And so now you want to have an opinion. No. Stick to organizing and divesting your police. And we're going to worry about this cannabis over here. And thank you guys all for joining us. We are still talking about tea. Our first hot topic is about really all these people against marijuana going to the court and trying to remove the ballot initiatives. So in Montana, believe it or not, they are trying to throw that legalization out as well. Now, they decided they weren't even going to go to the lower court. You know what I'm saying? They were just going to go straight up to the Supreme Court. And they was like, wait, you can't do that. So they rejected their request. And now they're saying, hey, this is not an urgent matter. You have to go through the right process. And that's what they had to start doing in Montana. So who knows how long or if this will actually have any traction. But basically, they're saying that, this was unlawful appropriating funds. It violated a portion of their constitution that prohibits allocations from being included in citizen initiatives.
I mean, literally, this is like hate on a whole nother level.
Okay.
Like, they literally trying to say you appropriations are all about how you divvy out the money. And wow. But here's the thing, this is why I've been doing these lives and being like, yo, we won, but now we work, because look at what is happening. It is evil, Rachel. I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like, why are you trying to prevent people from accessing? Here's the thing, cannabis is medicine first and always. And as a person who is a cannabis patient, literally a refugee from my home state to places where I know I can live better, I know that's a privilege, and it is one that I don't take for granted at all. And I fight every day so other people don't have to deal with that. They would live life so differently if they, were not surrounded by illegal cannabis, right? You have a choice between, do I risk my own life by just getting what I need, or do I try to save my ducats to be able to go somewhere else where it's available? And here you finally, and they didn't like, win by huge margins like New Jersey necessarily, but these were still legitimate majority votes. And I feel like shame on anyone in Montana, or what was it, Mississippi was the other one?
Yes, and we got one in South Dakota.
All three of the ones that we were like, oh my goodness, all three of them have
right. Exactly.
Wow.
So South Dakota, the
Yep.
gag is really the South Dakota, their sheriff and a highway patrolman superintendent filed lawsuit in one of their court systems last week,
Wait, Paul.
claiming
You
that
said the sheriff filed?
the county sheriff
Oh my.
and the highway patrol superintendent.
Okay.
Yes, they filed lawsuit in one of their courts last week claiming that the proposal to legalize marijuana should be invalidated. And to be honest, the half of the suit was paid for by state funds.
So, I mean, this is why I've been going live. And again, this is why I keep doing what I can to come up with ways to share what's really happening. And not just, this is one area. Cannabis is the most egregious area, certainly. But there are many other areas these type of moves are happening. We just aren't paying attention to it. These type of moves happen when it comes to real estate, contracts, things of that nature. And equity, while we fight so hard for it in cannabis, equity really is a universal thing that is being denied to a lot of different people, but first and foremost to Black and brown people in this country. And these are the perfect examples of how, access, right? The sheriff and some other person with a name, some sort of title I've never even heard of for a police officer, but they've decided that they want to, vote. I mean, not vote to sue, and they didn't do it on their own dime. They actually are using the money that everyday constituents, pay. It's like crazy. Our own money is being used against us in those states, and that's, and it's not just, I'm not talking about just Black folks. It's like, because in Montana ain't no Black folks for real.
Ain't no Black folks in South Dakota.
That's true too. But if you was there, guess what? You probably been arrested and you probably got a case, just because Montana is 10 times more likely to arrest a Black person for cannabis possession as compared to a white person. But the fact of the matter is, these are still people who are constituents who said, hey, no, I think Montana was like 57% of the vote said, no, we want to have legal weed. And so it's unfortunate that we have all of these people trying to block it. It's like crazy, but it's so important also why we have to watch what's happening in federal. I know we're going to get to more. That's our like main topic. We're going to go in on the MORE Act, but these are the things that are just like little things that I want to just point out, because I said it and people are like, for real? Like, oh, they could be used. How does the House pass it? If it's not going to pass the Senate, why would it matter? This is why it matters, because the ops uses it in various ways. And in certain places, in certain states, everybody ain't like free to plant like California. And even they have its own systemic racism that they need to deal with. That's like sugar-coated with progressiveness, right? But South Dakota and Montana, these are blatantly racist states. And so, they want to still keep arresting people. That right. The sheriff and the patrol guy was like, nah, we don't want
to. But they might actually have a little bit more traction, because they're saying that this violates the constitutional amendment violates the Constitution, that no proposed amendment may embrace more than one subject. So even though it's cannabis, remember, they had two different things. They had medical and then they had adult use. So we're going to keep our eyes on South Dakota, but we got to keep it moving.
Wait, really quick, I just want to make sure people on Instagram heard you when you say that.
I'm not on Instagram.
They are doing it because they're able to say South Dakota mentioned more than one topic. And so just on that alone, that technicality, they were able to sue. That's crazy. Yes, we're going to have to report on that in the future.
Yes, because it's all in the beginning stages. Now, hot topic number 2 is it might be in this last little final drag out draw, because hot topic number 2 is about Wiz Khalifa and Micheal Strahan being sued by their cannabis company. Yes, I did say that. So we know Khalifa is a huge canna culture celebrity within the industry. Everybody wants him. I didn't know Micheal Strahan had his hand in cannabis.
I would say the same thing. They in the same business?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Strahan and Khalifa. Who would have thought? Okay, well, what's the tea?
I know that's right. I didn't think it either until that's why I had to go and dig. I mean, I went into a rabbit hole on this one, honey, because it is a 22-page case. Now, if anybody ever wants to read that case, it is $40 in the LA court. Now, Yes, ma'am. And so ultimately, they're being sued by their Khalifa Kush partners,
Wow.
allegedly withholding millions of dollars worth of assets, misappropriating funds, just he says civil conspiracy, so conspiring against them to hide licensing deals.
Wow.
Now, this happens when he said that he was denied interest from the company's earnings, which had a license deal for $20 million. He claims that Khalifa and Strahan stole more than $100 million in assets by excluding him from the company's business dealings, y'all.
Ah, this is a mess. I'm like, oh my God.
Listen, this is what happens. Black celebs love coming in the cannabis industry, joining little companies, thinking they know what they're doing because they coming from the entertainment and might be similar. You know, they've always had cannabis, and then they partners with these dudes. They don't know what they're doing either, and y'all out here looking crazy.
They both are looking crazy. So, because this sounds like some MedMen, like when the CFO sued and was like, "This what y'all was doing." People think that they're getting into cannabis, and there's zero respect for the plant, for the industry, for the people that are still being incarcerated. Because both of them, I mean, I don't allegedly, right? I don't want to put anything on Khalifa and Strahan, which again, very strange bedfellows. And I think that's something Leo Bridgewater says, like, cannabis makes strange bedfellows. I would never put them two together. But alas, it doesn't surprise me that there would be this kind of accusation. Strahan feels a little old to be doing some of this, and even Khalifa, real talk, he's like not no new. He's not no young buck, and I just to me that feels very young buck. They both have money beforehand, and I do think some of the mistakes that I've seen mostly have come from the operators who are non-celebrity and are just thinking, oh, it's cannabis, so it don't matter, and we can do anything. This is interesting. And how much is this suit?
Oh, he's suing them for 100. He is suing them for the 20 million.
$20 million. Wow. So they're saying $20 million was actually
that was the licensing cost, but he said that he was stolen more than 100 million in assets.
Gotcha.
So the money was 20 million, but the whole entire shebang was worth 100 million.
Wow. Do we really believe that? Just knowing what we know about Khalifa Kush.
I mean, I've been on their website and I know they're in Canada and they have some stuff out here. And I tried, like, when I first got in the industry, I tried Khalifa Kush. I mean, like, I'm not going to diss it, but I'm not going to be like running to the streets to go get it.
Right. Well, listen, I'm just wanted to make sure that we don't have, because I imagine their partners are probably white, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well, no, he's saying he says his final piece of his final piece of the lawsuit is that this allegedly was a scheme orchestrated by Wiz Khalifa and his entourage, who basically conspired to have illicit assistance of outside counsel to misappropriate the the assets. And he's saying that Michael Strahan and a few other entertainment companies were a part of the conspiracy. So maybe Wiz Khalifa was like, hey, these white boys don't know what they're doing. Let me try to bring people in. And because he tried to like slice him out the cake a little bit, he now is suing him.
Yeah, that's what it's sounding like, honestly, because I just don't imagine that it was like in the, again, allegedly men, frivolous way, PJs, private jets, all of that. I'm sure they have private jets, but like just for the sake of flossing and having a party. But if you partner, again, this is a lesson. I'm like, I wish these celebrities would pay attention to who are the black and brown operators on the ground. Because, not saying that those are all perfect, but like it is the case that you think you're going into business with people who supposedly have all of this experience. Cannabis experts don't know weed market dynamics, don't know cannabis, don't know business. And it's just like you're wasting your time. And now they both are going to be caught up in this. And what could have been a very viable business brand that's sellable when things start to really open up, you may be caught up in litigation.
That is true. Keep it 100. It is for real. And, we know how tricky things get in the cannabis industry. So if you just go into black cannabis and get your feelers around, they will help you. Okay. There are people that's going to be like, we might want to.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, you know what? You have, like, I was on a panel with Jim Jones, and I knew he was talked about on the panel, he was doing stuff, and I just was like, yo, bro, like this and this, and this. And he was like, yup. Now, that doesn't mean he necessarily was like, oh, I gotta hire her. But the fact of the matter is that there is a little bit more familial, like, kind of conversation that you can happen when it is other folks. But I also know that, some skin folk and kin folk, right? And
Hello.
that's real too. But I just think that what I don't like is the narrative that, especially tying Strahan to Khalifa, these athletes and rappers coming in doing this and that, and it's all misappropriation. Like, it is a lot of legal jargon to basically say they stole from us. These black boys are thieves. And so I want to work on trying to dig a little bit deeper. I know you were digging.
Well, we haven't heard their rebuttal.
Right.
He just filed this lawsuit. So, we have not heard from Team Khalifa or Strahan, because I know with our experience, I'm more going to side with Khalifa and Strahan, just because of the experience we've had in cannabis working with all types of companies.
Yes. I don't know. Someone on our IG was basically like that black folks know the plants, which they do. We also know the culture, by the way. We are the culture. Let's be real. Boom. And then, but not enough of us know the business sense. And that's just not true. That's part of the stereotype we perpetuate. These white men have lost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, bro. Like, I don't know, what data I could drop, because I got a lot of it that basically shows that, one, when you allow diversity in your business and senior leadership, because at the end of the day, cannabis business is not very different from regular business. In fact, the more it gets to be bigger business, the more, that's when you can tell that none of these white guys know what they're doing. And that's why they keep losing money hand over foot every year. But yet we can't raise money. And that's partially because of that stereotype, like, we don't know what cannabis is. No, we know we market dynamics better than anybody else. Why? Because we know the legacy market better than anybody else. And the legacy market still exists, right? And yes, we built the industry. And so I just want to make sure we're clear that, one, people are crossing over, like I did, from high level executive positions. And they need to stop trying to play us and put us in the, areas where it's only like, that's where black people are allowed, like some sort of chief visionary officer, like they did, like that's Jay-Z's position with
right. Like, what?
It's made up. But rather CEO, CFO, we got black talent. We actually do have a lot of black and brown talent in this country, and are crossing over. And this idea that I see too much crazy stuff, and partly that's what gives them the ability to raise money and not us. So I had to say it. It is what it is.
Yo, you already know. You better keep it real, okay? We do not perpetuate stereotypes around here. Okay, we debunk myths.
So
absolutely. 100. And we could just, in fact, you don't have to send him nothing. He could just Google, because they always asking for money on these big cannabis companies, and look at their investment sheets, because the P&L is there. And so, I don't like that either. So we gonna just head to hot topic number 3 for Get Too Steamy, because we gotta leave this smoke for the Morak, honey.
Okay, let's go.
The United Nations has descheduled cannabis, believe it or not. Yes, they adopted the proposal to delete cannabis from the Schedule 4 of their 1961 single convention. I don't know. This was way before my time. So.
Girl, you are so funny. They have drug categories like the DEA, the World Health Organization is nothing to be played with. In fact, they had a different level of what should be hemp. I think it's like 0.2% and not 0.3%. So yeah, it's definitely a big deal. They descheduled, and typically, that's why we'll talk a little bit about it with the MORE Act. But typically, the DEA is really supposed to be aligned with that. They descheduled. Guess what? Where's the announcement from the DEA?
Right. Well, They still trying to get their money for the next year so they could, suppress and eradicate cannabis.
Yes.
So with that happening, the World Health Organization did recommend to remove cannabis. You're right, but there were a lot of, as much as they approved some things, they did reject quite a few things as well. So they did approve to remove it from Schedule 4, but they rejected adding THC and the synthetic cannabinoid THC from Schedule 1 of that actual act. They rejected to the second recommendation of adopting to add THC to Schedule 1 of the act. They rejected to delete extracts and tinctures of cannabis from Schedule 1 of the act.
Okay.
They rejected to add a footnote to clarify CBD products containing no more than 0.2% THC are not subject to international control.
It's so okay. When I say the devil's in the details, folks, when we say we won, now we work. This is why, because there was a whole thing like all week long. Everybody's talking about cannabis is medicine now, and who did this? And yes, they did. They descheduled, but look at what they rejected. Just to be clear, what they rejected as compared to our markets. They rejected concentrates. Okay, they rejected concentrates, and just blanketly based on what this says. They rejected THC from being removed. That as just a molecule itself. Okay, they rejected adding something as simple as a footnote to say that CBD. And here's the thing. People want to say they voted, and they did, but things were really tight. It wasn't an overwhelming vote. It was very, very, I think it was like a 4-vote difference. Okay. So there was a lot of concessions. These are the concessions we continue to make. And yet our industry continues to celebrate like we've done these huge things. And yes, they are historical, but that's what it is. It's like the performance of history being made with the backdrop of still the same shit though.
Yes, Janelle definitely said it best, because they write these things. They want you to think they're doing something, but they ain't doing nothing.
Nothing effectively changed. Nothing changed. Right. If we go to Oregon, and we say this, and I'm glad that we're talking about it, because I was actually digging into a little bit as I was trying to write a brief up for folks in the city of Portland, right? And I just, here's what happened, because a lot happened, right? It was dog years, more act happened, that happened, it's like, explain it, but everybody wants to celebrate it. And I'm like, no, before anything erroneous comes out and you're celebrating something and not knowing, we've got to get into the nitty gritty and the fine detail. And that was what I found, was basically like, oh, it's performative. They get to say it, but then everything that we're using, every market that I know of has THC in the market. So that's still fun. That's why the DEA didn't deschedule, right? Like when I asked that at the beginning of this segment, I was like, where the DEA at? That's why.
No, they funding for their eradication suppression program.
Yes, millions, eradication and suppression.
Okay.
With support and release.
Right. This is why they put it so many pages too, because they don't want us to read it. This thing be long as heck. I'd be like, oh, I gotta take a break. My eyes hurt, and I'm not about to print it out.
Your eyes through it, Ice, because without you digging through the details and the dirt of it, I'm sure our viewers and listeners would not be able to get through everything. And that's reality. That's part of the reason why She Blaze is so important. And all of the folks who are usually listening, share the information, share the episode, but more importantly, just share it, absorb it, share it. And you don't have to be the Debbie Downer. I totally can be. That's why I'm like, share the episode, but you also, more than anything, don't allow people to spread, misinformation, like something is categorically changed, because it literally has not.
No, nothing's changed. What you say? Same girl, different wig.
Same girl, different wig. Yes.
All the personalities, all that.
Yeah.
So let's get into these main topics, because that's why you went on IG Live without me and taking it down. So, we're going to get into the more acts, because you're really letting it know that, we just not playing no more. We don't care for the eggs.
It's ridiculous. And yes, I will never live this down that I got on IG Live without the cannabis socialites. You feel like we're having a party over here, y'all. But no, I'm on
I got
both.
FOMO.
Again, we are live on She Blaze on Facebook on our regular weekly episode. And because so many people hit me up in the DMs related to my post as it pertains to the MORE Act, I just felt like, okay, we were already going to talk about it. Let's be real. We're keeping y'all up to date. But I wanted to make sure, yes, Dr. Rachel, hashtag no more acting. Okay. No more acting like we really doing something. And I think that's why it was a perfect segment from the UN's, whole descheduling that wasn't really a descheduling to now the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act that is removing opportunity from the very populations that we just got folks to admit deserve first dibs and ability to have a seat at the table. And they also are not really helping that much with the expungements. And so that's some of the things that I really wanted to just break down for people, so that you can take it back to your communities, you can take it back to your circles, and not be in the comments, surprised or even giving me the side eye like I'm not supporting legalization. Bump that. I'm fighting for legalization, but I'm fighting for equity-centered legalization. Let that be for the record. Okay. If it's not going to be equity centered, we don't need it. We don't want it. Why? Because it doesn't change anything. All it does is make us confused and create this limbo status for people who need it to be done correctly. Right. So let's start with one of the very first, no, we can't have no discussion beyond this. That's in the MORE Act. Yes, historic moment. We've got a majority of our Congress that got to say finally, after all these years, that this should be legalized. We got so many people got up there and testified about all the different things that have happened to Black and brown folks, and the racial disparities in the arrests, and the fact that this is medicine. And in effect, we have on the record that they've been lying to us for decades. Okay, so thank you. I will take that. I will take that, and I will use that as precedent. However, there was also a lot of opposing commentary and testimony. We still have doctors, and I'm calling out this representative from North Carolina who is a doctor, an MD, who was quoting stuff from like the 80s and the 90s, the last time America really did any research on marijuana. He was still talking about psychosis and things that, I guess smart approaches to marijuana would say, things that we've debunked so many times, acting like they're really afraid for the kids. And what I also think is real problematic, they're acting like there's not a lot of data that we have. These industries have been around for a while. California since 1996, and albeit not perfect, but we learned a lot. And Colorado and the mature adult use now since 2010. So again, wherever I've been as a businesswoman, there's no place that you cannot comp and you cannot look to the past or historicals and learn from it. And I don't know, one of the things I did was when I was watching was wanted to see what was still being used as precedent and as an argument. They have added new up-to-date precedent. So some of the opposition used the Surgeon General's statements from this year, right? Another doctor. So again, Doctors for Cannabis Regulation.
We know he not no good doctor, okay?
He's a real doctor. He got an MD. Yes, but yes, they are using his statements, erroneous statements as it pertains to cannabis, uninformed cannabis statements as their precedent. So I say all that to say, as I bring up the things we should be concerned about with MORE Act, precedent is a big deal, and it's something that we have to, overcome. And the opposition uses it against us over and over again, day to day. They're still using precedent from freaking 30 years ago that we've been, gotten data from Israel, Germany, Australia, Canada, and they're like, well, that's not the US. And the fact that we can still do that despite our administration is crazy to me. That's our privilege, right? But anyway, so why is this all like troubling me? Why have me and Dr. Rachel, why have we been singing, really ringing the alarm? And it's because the devil's in the details, similar to what's happening with the UN. When we dug into the details, the language behind the MORE Act was really devastating for us to see. Me as a regulator, devastating because I'm trying to do things now that are in direct opposition to what the federal government has put together. So the very first thing that was a non-starter was the felony exclusion clause. What does that mean? It basically means that you really, they're not allowing people with prior cannabis felonies, federal or state, to be able to, get into the industry, to have to get a license. That to me is like, what? If that didn't, like, I mean, again, if you're listening, Facebook, IG, if that didn't give you pause when you hear us talk about those most adversely affected, we are talking about first and foremost people who were directly impacted, right? It's just, when I read that, I thought to myself, this is insane. And I feel like I'm in a twilight zone, because we literally just got Colorado, after 10 years, to finally admit that they needed to have an equity designation. And that equity designation is specifically saying, hey, you have to have these previous arrests or incarceration directly related to cannabis. And so now what this does is put language in a federal bill that directly opposes it. And states aren't that gangster. They not, I mean, for real, like we think they are because they made it legal, but the Cole memo was a point of protection for so many years. And the minute we had a crazy AG for a minute, Cole memo was rescinded. Do you not know how crazy the private sector went for cannabis, how crazy states went for cannabis? When things happen at the federal level, it immediately signals to the state, we need to get ready. We need to adjust. We need to get ready for what's coming down the pipe. Because even though states have rights, they still have to align to the federal, laws. So Dr. Rachel also pointed out in our IG that I got to say here is that it's not just you have a case, it's that you have a case pending, right? So you don't even know the outcome of the case, but you can't get a license, okay? So again, that was a real non-starter for myself, for a lot of cannabis regulators, especially the ones as a part of Cannabis Regulators of Color Coalition, or CRCC. But I think we rang the alarm, and unfortunately, not being in the table, not being in the room during the time that these different provisions are being added is why this keeps happening. We did get a chance to sit down with the representatives that are leading the charge here, and ultimately they were apologetic, of course, because this goes against what they're saying the MORE Act was intended to do, but it was a mistake. Why? Because they're lifting language from a prior statute. Regulate like tobacco. Tobacco was the thing that we were being told. And when you look at the tobacco statute, people who have felonies are not allowed to be in the tobacco industry, basically. So one thing they did is one thing they did that I'm just like, okay, I want to make sure we know that equity also means going back into the old statute like that and removing the people who have cannabis felonies and pointing out that they should be allowed to participate. So even that, I won't go into that fully, but one of the things that alarmed me was that these are old statutes that are really still perpetuating the same systemic racism. And if cannabis arrests are so large, they are still kind of living and perpetuating old cannabis prohibition law, right? Because none of those people can join those industries either, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
And this is, to be fair, this is not the same MORE Act that was passed the committee last year. Right. So there was like a huge, we did an episode on it, there was like a huge rally cry of like, it finally passed the committee, and this is not the same thing. So like, don't get tricked, you guys. After they left committee and they started going to the House floor, they added amendments, and in the amendments are the things you're talking about.
Yes, and that was the first one. And again, it came from language lifted. They didn't have originally a tax or a regulatory structure. And basically in an attempt to try to make money off the industry before they freed the people that have been really oppressed as a result of the industry's prohibition, they try to do it too fast, and they put in language that was left over. And we're seeing this happen in other jurisdictions where you might say something and you go through it and you're like, we want to fix all those things, and then you give it to your legislative lawyers or whatnot, you get it back and it's got still the same old shit in it. And it's like, if we weren't going through it with a fine-tooth comb or aware that we fixed that, we purposely fixed that, we came up with an innovative way around that, it would absolutely still go right through, and then we'd be fucked again, excuse my language, but you know, as she blazes,
It's real what it is.
it is what it is. So that's number one, the felony exclusion, basically the opportunity in marijuana opportunity reinvestment and expungement, totally stripped away from the people who deserve it most, if you ask me, and that we've been fighting for, and the defining cannabis equity around them as the nucleus, right? Now, of course, we know that their impact also impacted families, communities, and impacted further investment, policing, further investment on over policing those communities. So it was a wave, but it starts with that, right? That is still the nucleus. And I think it's important for us to recognize that every single equity program that we revere and we talk about in the country, Illinois, California, things we're doing in Oregon, Massachusetts, like these are built on having that as a requisite, like your felony charge, bring your charge and come be an equity applicant. And essentially what this does is signal to those states that's not valid. And we just talked about in our very first thing that you see how quickly things get happening when folks want to sue. How do you think, folks or the opposition may potentially use this once they start to dig into it? That's a lawsuit. They want to remove a ballot measures outcome because you're talking about two things by saying adult use and medical. That's a technicality, right? Based on the law. These are those type of technicalities that we just know walk back years of work and millions of investment, because that's
right. And it takes a long time to amend these things. They did have, before they actually voted on the act with the House floor, they had another vote, which basically said, hey, like, do we want to take this back to the drawing board or do we want to put this on the floor? And these Democrats raced to say yes. I mean, like, it was like, I thought the Roadrunner was in the doggone room. How quickly their representatives came and was like, yep, we say yay, it's good. And then when they went in there, they approved the bill. So, it's just a thing where it's like, we, one, know how long amendments take to change. Like, we are still dealing with amendments right now. And then two is, again, why not make a perfect bill so you don't have to go back and make amendments? So you don't have to make sure, in 10 years, they're going to try to come back in and do this. Like, why don't you foresee the future? Why don't you guys have some foresight or some like?
Well, they don't want to have it. And also it's all about playing the game. And so today I posted about the feeling of contorting, right? And trying to fit into a system that was never designed or built to promote, support the welfare of Black and brown folks. And so when folks come to us, they gaslight us a lot, right? They gaslight taxpayers a lot and advocates a lot, saying, oh, this is fine for now. And literally 10 years later, for example, Colorado legalized, it took them 10 years to come up with an equity designation. We're getting sold a bag of shit. Sorry. It is like, I said it in my IG and I'll say it again. You can't remix shit into sugar. Like, that is literally, like, chemically, scientifically, it's just not going to happen. All it is sugary shit. It's still shit. The sugar is the performance, right? And we're all happy about it. It's the Black Lives Matter painted all over the floor. It's the fact that we can say, oh, they voted to legalize in the House, and that's never been done. That's historical. And historical.
No, it's bullshit.
But it is still shit, because guess what? The people who deserve the opportunity most are not going to get it. So then the second thing that is a really big issue is there's a required federal permit for everybody. If you're even in the industry right now and you're thinking, oh, you got a leg up, guess what? You're going to have to get federally permitted as well as everybody else. Now, here's the thing. A lot of folks really believe that these little MSOs are big companies. They think they're huge. They talk about them. And I think part of it is because we do have this like dichotomous experience where you have really big MSOs and there's only a few of them, a handful of them, but they're mostly small craft cannabis companies, right? And so they think these multi-million-dollar companies are bullies. Wait till you have to deal with freaking Walmart, okay? Because Walmart's been waiting in the wing, y'all. Walmart's been waiting in the wing since Arkansas became a medical cannabis market, right? And they have done a lot of research, and that's what big companies do. They wait and they use their time and money to research, and so then they hire people like myself to write white papers and tell them exactly when they should be moving into the industry. And this bill is more in favor of all of those big industries that actually exist. It's not necessarily even in favor of the people who are already in the industry, because all those people still have to go through federal permit. And federal permit is not, again, devoid of all of the hoop drumming that we're used to. If you've ever gotten an MWBE or the federal designation 8A, it is a hoop drumming exercise. You better get your muscles up, because you're going to be jumping through hoops the whole time. And it's all for what? The ability to say you have a designation so that you can be counted as part of a program, a reform program that allows Black and brown folks or minority and women owners into the industry. Anything that is run by the federal government is just going to be run right through the same shitty ass tools we've been using forever. And they don't work already. They're steeped with systemic racism. They were never really designed to be successful. And yet we're going to expect that with cannabis, we turning over a new leaf. No. That's not going to happen. The big pharma companies are going to be the ones that benefit from this type of legislation and this type of framework. That's why I said hashtag no more acting. Stop acting like this is a bill for the cannabis industry. It's not. It's a bill for big tobacco, big pharma, big CPG. That's what it is.
I mean, and in the bill, they don't even specifically call out when the states have to put these decriminalization into law. Now, if we know anything about America, we know that when states are not forced to do a certain thing, they're not going to do it. They're going to create their own way to do it. That's why it even took so long for things like interracial dating, certain voting acts, because they never put a timeline of, okay, it needs to be by January 1st of 2022 or 2021 or whatever. They didn't put none of that in the writing. And because they never put it in the writing, they don't allow the states to force their hand. If this was to pass all the way through, hypothetically speaking, and it's signed, everything's all kosher, Georgia, North Carolina, which their governor just put together an equity task force on taxpayer dimes to show something that you could have Googled. They are going to take a long time to put these laws into act. And when they create a framework around it, it's going to be insane. It's not going to be a real marketplace. It's not going to be something that, everyone can play in. And I do try to figure out why they chose to, because they love comparing cannabis to tobacco or alcohol. My curiosity comes from, why did you guys decide to do it like tobacco when most of all these states have been doing it like alcohol?
Well, tobacco, in my opinion, has the felony exclusion. I mean, here's the thing. They said it was an accident, but to be truthful, a lot of stuff happens behind closed doors, politics, politicking, whatever. And when you're trying to get something passed for a performance, sometimes you don't care what's going on behind the curtain, right? Because you are also trying to, say to yourself, well, it's not going to get past the Senate. And so it's almost like, well, it don't matter. Nobody's going to pay attention that closely. They're banking on us not paying attention that closely. They're banking on us stopping at the name more act. They're banking on us saying, oh, it's opportunity reinvestment and expungement. They're banking on the hundreds of delegates that voted, Democratic delegates that voted. There's 4 people that probably made the deal, and then the hundreds of people are voting on the fact that it sounds good, right? So I would say they picked tobacco. There's some language in liquor, but it's not and that's why it's been able to be used in the state level. But yeah, that was odd to me too. And I go back to cannabis's medicine first and always. Again, cannabis patient here, and I'm really always confused about why we comparing it to alcohol or tobacco, because I don't use cannabis like either. And I know that's part of that stereotype and that assumption. And I think part of it is the assumption that consumers will remain ignorant. It doesn't work like that. When Black women decided to go from perm in their hair, 80% of them, to 80% natural, we became the experts on natural hair, okay? And then to the point where we all are YouTube celebrities as a result. When consumers decide that they are going to fully engage, they learn. And so what you're doing is setting them up for them to be frustrated, because once they finally think they're in a legal market that they can fully engage, they're like, whoa, hold up. This is set up like some shit that it doesn't even apply to. So we absolutely are, starting off, really wrong with those two things. But that's not even it, right? You mentioned something else about putting, a little bit of weight from the federal government onto the next of state. I also called it out. I said, all right, if they say no felony folks are allowed, the states are going to like follow suit. They're going to start getting nervous and they're going to start pulling back. North Carolina, for example, that has that equity task force that is focused on trying to get folks who were most harmed. They're going to be like, well, maybe we don't got to do that because look at what the federal government is doing. But the other thing that the MORE Act signals is what they also don't have to do is what they don't explicitly say. So the federal legislation around the MORE Act does have federal expungement, hence the expungement term in the acronym, right? Opportunity, reinvestment, expungement. So we've already seen the opportunity is gone from the people that deserve it, need it. That's where we focus, like the most directly harmed. They do have the reinvestment piece. Okay, we could talk about why that's a challenge, but it's reinvestment through the same shitty ass tools that don't work, like SBA, right? So that is I'll give that a C. Right? Opportunity, I'm giving an F because you missed the whole thing. Reinvestment, you're getting a C. Now, expungement, people are real excited about this federal expungement. Real excited, especially people who ain't never been arrested before, ain't never caught a case before, don't got a cousin, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, or anybody that's ever caught a case, because you would know that if it doesn't say, and I've been getting this, they're like, well, it's federal expungement at least. It's a step. It's a step. Well, guess what? In states like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, very, very, very racist states, even New York, okay, where they're making money off of incarceration. If you caught a federal case, guess what? You caught a state case too. So why would you not actually force people, again, to do exactly what you're trying to do? If the federal government is really trying to expunge folks and really free the people, then you will force the states to free them too. And if you don't explicitly mandate it, like you're doing with the exclusion of felony folks, the states won't do it. So now we got what I call a half-ass expungement, where you put people in limbo. One, because they may get expunged on the federal level automatically. That sounds so good. But guess what? They still got that state charge. And then guess what? Back to the first thing I just said, they can't be in the industry because the felony exclusion is state or federal. This is the game they're playing, y'all. And I'm getting hyped because I'm like, yo, these are chess moves and we getting played. We getting played and it's like checkmate, checkmate, checkmate. Okay.
People in the kid rallying doggone Abby that you claim you and you and the kid not a win for the kid, not a win for us.
I'm not sure what happened. I think our sound got messed up, so I can only hear parts of what you're saying. Can you hear me well?
Yes. Hear me?
Okay, you got real like slow. But the fact of the matter is, you're right. Like they got people rallying around something where they're giving us a half-ass approach to it. It's really bad. Like, I mean, again, opportunity, I got to give them an F because they are taking away the opportunity from the people directly harmed. Reinvestment is there. It's written out and it sounds so good. The sound bites are amazing, but they're using the same, again, tools that are broken. SBA already has a very poor track record with Black and brown folks. And then last but not least, expungement. Yes, the federal expungement piece is there, but they don't mandate that states do it. And we already know that there are states like Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Kentucky, and I have to put my own home state in it, New York. We arrest a lot of people. If they're not told to do it, they're going to come up with their own plan. And it never actually is in our best interest. So what we've done is set up a very, very scary situation where we've got people dancing in the streets, literally. We've got folks really excited around this performative act, but in reality, there is no change. There's no change at all on the back end. So I'm definitely...
Can you hear me now?
No, your sound is still a little bit crazy, but I am getting some questions, so I'm going to keep on going until your sound gets... You don't know how to change it? No, I can't hear you now. Now you're completely gone. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. This is actually our first one in this season, and this is like episode 16. So not
Can you hear
bad.
me now?
Oh, yay. It's back a little bit. Let me see.
A
Say
little
something.
bit.
Yes, there you go. But your sound is a little bit off your picture, but it doesn't matter. I want to thank everybody that's been joining us on Facebook and on Instagram. We've been going in. There have been a few questions, and we haven't been able to address them because I wanted to get through my just the connecting the dots for everyone. And it is a ball, like a snowball. Again, if you don't get the state expungement, you cannot participate, and then so on and so forth. That being said, what do we do about it? The first is stop celebrating, right? Stop posting about the fact that this passed and it was so historic. When you post, maybe if you want to lead in with that, that's fine, but share the real details. And the details are really very, very simple. Felony exclusion, right? That's the opportunity part. Use the acronym. That's what I've been doing. The opportunity part, felony exclusion, that means the opportunity is not going to the right people. And again, one last time, the reinvestment part, it does exist, but it's using tools that already are embedded in systemic racism, that already do not support and provide services to Black and brown folks in a good way. SBA has a very, very, very tough history as it pertains to Black and brown folks. And so to have that money, you know, for example, getting loans and stuff through SBA, it's like you're just setting it up for it to be stalled and taking a long time to actually get to the right people. And then last, expungement is a real issue because, you know, they didn't require the states to do it. And if you caught a federal case, odds are you caught a state case too. Actually, it's 90%. The data shows this, in fact. And so you absolutely need to make sure that you are canceling those out, and we've got to call them out for it. The other really important piece, I guess, that I did say was that federal permit is required. So this doesn't just impact Black and brown folks. That's the entire industry, small crafts business to the larger MSOs. If you think your car is going to move as fast or be as big as that of a multi-billion-dollar industry, I've been thinking about it. I flew into New York to deal with some things with New Jersey, and I am definitely racking my brain why people think multi-million is going to compete with multi-billion. Do y'all not realize that $1 billion is 1,000 times more than $1 million? It's not 100 times more, 10 times more, it's 1,000 times more. And what it does is set that up for them to run the industry and for us to be trying to figure out where's our opportunity really at. Other things that we're doing, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, we are getting to the end of the show. You are definitely, I've been back for a minute, but you definitely gone in and let us know about the MORE Act just being not a win for the cannabis industry. I think you had some really great points. I would say, you know, people, you got to read it on your own. You know, I have my own opinions about it that differs, and you're going to have different opinions. It's not even just also about equity. Like it's just a bad bill. Yes. It is just a bad bill. You know, there are some lifetime positions they trying to give people in the bill. Yep. So just read the bill, y'all. Read it. If it's got to be a group project, one person read these pages, another person read these pages, and y'all come back and communicate. But in the cannabis industry, just please read the bill. But Dashida, please let the people know where they can find you. It's you on both the platforms, but let them know where the tweet happens.
Yes, well, I'm at Dasicias Dawson on Instagram and on Twitter. ICE, as always, keeping us tight and right. We're only really an hour show, and so we are going to be taking it down. But don't fear, on IG, I'm going live this week with a number of advocates to really keep saying the same message. You know, there was asked, what do we do? Well, what we do is we keep saying the same message. We have to become a chorus, and that's why I want to get people trained on what those issues are and what you should be saying and why you should rebut and not accept. And no, again, and Dr. Rachel and I talk about this, it's not about being perfect. We don't want perfection, right? We're not looking for that. We are looking for still not.
You're just looking for the bare minimum.
Yes.
The bare minimum. This is subpar. This is mediocre. This
Absolutely.
is mediocre work.
Absolutely. And not direct opposition to what we're doing. And last but not least, we need the right people in the room. When we've been talking a lot, the equity leaders, cannabis equity leaders around the country. And one thing we've noticed is that you have people who are organizations that are free the plant organizations, but they are not racial justice organizations necessarily. And so they need to either pivot and become better allies, or they don't need to be the ones in the room. We need to be in the room because we know what happens and we know how to, I guess, move forward in a better way. It's the lack of competency is real, and we have it. We have it in spades at this point within the Black and brown communities at that. And so it'll be interesting to see what this administration does. We will be keeping you all the way caught up on everything that happens with the MORE Act. And please stop asking people to go call their senator, because we don't want that shit to pass the Senate at all. We got our historic vote done and done. Now let's fix this shit. Let's course correct, please. Okay.
Right. I hope they block it low key, the Senate. I'm not gonna lie. That is my hope, so they can have the ability to go back to it. But thank you guys for joining us. And just so you know, we are live on Facebook at normally noon on Saturday, and you can just really binge us anytime on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, we everywhere. So follow us at she_blaze. And I'm Ice. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye. And Ice, you have a great week. I miss you already, even though it's only been a couple hours. I'm just joking, but really, I do. Bye, boo.
All right. Bye.
Bye.